Speaking of Labour's Green Prosperity Plan, which Starmer was pitching to Davos as being their way of creating secure jobs and lowering energy bills and energy independence, right? This Green Prosperity Plan they've been touting. In fact, Rachel Reeves touted it to me as their way of being able to stimulate investment and bring growth to the country. Remember, that's one of their main missions, is being the highest growth in the G7, highest sustained growth in the G7. That's one of their missions, remember, the missions for government. Wouldn't you believe it? Yet another pledge has been U-turned on. Who could have thought? Who could have thought that Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves could U-turn on a pledge? I'm so shocked. I am so shocked, it's unreal. There's the article that's been posted. This is a leak from The Guardian that they've had revealed to them by an internal party source, which is they are considering scaling back the £28 billion green plans. And it's actually only 20 billion, because they've already said that they're only doing on top of what has already been committed to by the Conservatives, which is currently 8 billion. So it's 20 billion on top of the Conservatives' 8 billion. So it's really only 20 billions that they have actually got additionally proposed in terms of what they're going to put in their manifesto. Insiders fear further watering down of party's flagship economic policy could leave Labour open to charges of flip-flopping by the Tories. So this has essentially got them into this hard place. It goes in later in the article, which we will read, to say that they think they're going to get attacked by Rishi Sunak over this issue. But then they're also going to get attacked by flip-flopping, so why don't you just stick to your guns, given this has been kind of a key pledge to huge swathes of the voters in this country. Anyway, then let's read on, and I'll give you my reaction as we go through. Labour is considering scaling back ambitious plans to borrow 20 billion a year to invest in green jobs industry amid fears the Conservatives will use their policy as a central line of attack in the general election campaign. The Guardian understands that Starmer and Reeves will discuss the party's flagship policy next month, with senior Labour figures pushing to drop the commitment entirely, while others want to retain key elements of the plan. I wonder which Labour officials they will be. Always going to be the same ones every single time, all those grubby little hands we see across the watering down of policy with regards to Keir Starmer, almost like it was planned that way and he never wanted to stick to any of these pledges in the first place. But I digress. Interesting, they say they fear the Conservatives will use it as a central line of attack in a general election campaign. But there's two things I want to react to this with. The first of all is saying, well, they'll use it as an attack line. They're already using it as an attack line. Sunak talks about it all the time. They're going to increase inflation by borrowing all this money. And I'm like, well, not necessarily if it's an investment in the supply side, which is what this is. It would necessarily be if it's energy generation in investing into the supply side of the economy. So it wouldn't be an inflationary investment, especially if it's growing the economy. So it's not incompatible with, for example, bringing down the debt to GDP ratio if you're borrowing money slower than you're growing the economy, which a pro-growth plan like additional supply-side economic reform to our energy generation from the state sector, that literally would be. Okay, so that's one thing which is nonsense, an attack line. Second of all, what's nonsense about this is the fact that people don't care. People literally don't care that they don't care that Sunak is specifically attacking them on this pledge, because they literally do want state spending. I was checking the YouGov polling on this. It's like only 12% when polled think that getting the deficit down, bringing the debt to GDP ratio down is of a paramount importance when it comes to policy. And they actually want to see more state investment. It was around 50% or so would rather see more state investment rather than having to care about fiscal deficits. This idea that you'll suddenly turn off huge swathes of the population by committing to this expansionary fiscal policy, that's just not true either. Like, so they're not bothered looking at the polling. It's not affected them at all up to this point, despite the constant attacks. Why would it affect them during a general election campaign? It just doesn't make any sense. And thank you for the bits, Ron. That's much appreciated. Labour officials say they intend to keep central parts of the Green policy, but want to recast them in a way that allows them to stop talking so much about what they cost, focusing instead on what the policies will achieve. One insider said some are concerned about how a Labour government would grow the economy without a green plan, which is my central thing, right? If you're going to have one of your main missions to be having highest sustained growth in the G7, our energy system needs revamping completely. That was not going to happen without that. And second of all, you're going to need expansionary fiscal policy to do that. You're going to need expansionary fiscal policy given what an absolute wreck our economy is in, given how much of our public services just don't function in a way that would grow the economy. Like, how are you going to have a growing economy when loads of people can't work because they're too ill because the NHS is screwed, or the schools are collapsing? Like, these are basic things that need to get fixed, and it's going to require fiscal expansion. So you're going to have to spend the money to make money in simple business sense, right? There'll be a pivot in the new year, and the 28 billion price tag as it exists now is unlikely to survive that. Whatever ultimately happens will be a further watering down of that position. This will be the Tories' number one area of attacks they need to deal with it, or just make the positive case for fiscal expansion. The public already want to hear it. They already want to see it. They already support the policy. It doesn't make any sense. What are they doing? It doesn't make any sense. Given how much he's flip-flopped already, I guess it couldn't get any worse. Like, is it kind of a fly in the ointment on like the flip-flopper allegations or like the attack lines? But on like such essential points people actually care about. Huge numbers of people want to see a green transition in this country. One of the most pro-green countries in Europe when it comes to polling, much more so than France, even than the US, right? We're super green as a population. We do want to see this investment happen. I don't know who they think they're winning these votes for anyway. You know, if they come with an attack, have a defense for the attack. It makes so much sense. It comes after Reeves delayed plans in June for the Green Fund to start in the first year of the government, saying it would ramp up by the end of the first parliament. Many Labour officials are irritated. They have to defend the £28 billion figure without being able to say exactly how the money will be spent. Reeves has already been focusing on the outcomes of the investment rather than its cost, which she did not mention in her Labour conference speech in autumn. Even Ed Miliband, the Shadow Energy Secretary, is understood to accept that the party needs to move away from talking about the cost of the scheme and on to talking about its benefits. Like, I feel so sorry for Eddie Baby. So sorry for Ed Miliband, just continually trying doggedly to have a proper commitment to a green transition and continue being undermined by the Labour leadership over and over and over again. It's even Ed Miliband is too left-wing for these people. They don't want him there, and it's clear, but they think they would look too much like they were disunited if they got rid of him. One way to refocus attention on the scheme, said one shadow minister, would be to wrap the existing plans into one bill with a title that could mimic the Inflation Reduction Act in the US. We could call it the Bringing Bills Down Act, the person said. Energy Security Act, maybe? I don't know. Others, however, believe rebadging the scheme will not be enough and want the overall financial commitment to be scaled back, perhaps dramatically. Of course, can't promise anything, nothing good can ever happen. Labour insiders said these included Pat McFadden, the Shadow Cabinet Office Minister, and of course, friend of the show, Morgan McSweeney, the devil behind all the details, and the man lurking behind every corner with an axe written with austerity on top of it like a visual metaphor. Despise that man, utterly despise him. And the Shadow Treasury Minister, Spencer Livermore, I've never heard of before. This plan is already hampered by the fact that Reeves has said it will only be achieved if it fits within Labour's promise to have debt falling as a share of GDP. Her team will have stressed that the fiscal rules are paramount. Others in the party want Labour to be ambitious and stick to their original pledge, while spelling out in more detail how it would be spent. They point out that the idea of publicly owned energy generation is overwhelmingly popular. Wow, I can't believe public ownership is popular in this country. I was told that if you supported public ownership of things like this, it made you a hard left trot. But of course, no, it's not. It's just what the vast majority of people in this country want for rail, mail, energy, water, all of these things. But of course, you know, if you want it within the Labour Party, it makes you a Trotskyist, a disciple of Leon Trotsky himself, if you want a public ownership of your utilities. They also point out that with spiralling costs, the party should be making the case even more vociferously for clean power generation. Very, very true. Sunak and his ministers have already begun to weaponise the major spending commitment, regularly raising its PMQs and argue it could result in tax rises in a move to undermine the opposition's fiscal credibility. And it literally hasn't worked. It's not worked as a attack line whatsoever. Like, nobody is looking at this as a bad thing, apart from like a tiny smidgen of the population. It's not an attack line that's worked now. Why do they think it's going to work later? This doesn't make any sense to me, and it just shows you like how fundamentally incurious and unserious this party are. That they are just so obsessed, so kind of singular focused obsessed on this idea of looking credible, that they'll just take away the only solutions they have to actual problems in this country, like one of the only good policies, which was this big investment into energy generation, to clean power, that will actually, you know, even though it will bring people's bills down, even though it will give us energy security, even though it will put money back into communities, we're going to cut back the pledge because the Tories might say that it was bad, even though the public don't think that it's bad. It's not just terrible policy, it's also really stupid electoralism as well. Like, I'm at my wit's end with this dumbass party. Like, what am I supposed to do? Why do people obsessed with making me vote for this party? And the one thing that's good that they want to do, the people who have the reins of power, right? The reason why I'm going to title this video that they're going to dump their green pledge is because Morgan McSweeney wants it, and what he says is what he gets. He's the person who essentially masterminded the reason why the party's in the position that it's in at the moment. He's the one who masterminded the Keir Starmer campaign. He's the one who hoodwinked the membership. He's the one who essentially is the one who organised all the funding that came for Labour together to turn Labour into a Conservative party. And he's at the top of the pyramid. So of course he's going to get what he wants. You just end up with a one-party system, right? Because if the Conservatives are saying a thing is bad, and everybody hates the Conservatives, doesn't that make everybody else think that it's a good thing, right? If the Conservative Party is so bad at governance, why should we take their advice on any kind of thing? Is that essentially what you're doing? Well, the Tories will say that it's bad. And we'll say, oh yeah, of course they'd say it's bad. Look at their 13 years of record in governance. Like, why should you trust a single word they say on what constitutes good policy? But they don't understand this. Terrible, pathetic. Hey there, if you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like and leave a comment that helps the video out in the algorithm. If you subscribe and ring the bell, it'll let you know when I go live. I stream every day on YouTube and Twitch. You can also follow all of my socials down in the description. And if you want to support me in a more financial manner, there's a join button for membership to just 99p to be a member on YouTube, as well as a Patreon, and there's some merch there as well. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.